where you're calling in from. We're really excited to have you here today.
All right.
All right, so I see some more people joining. I'm just going to give us into about 2 minutes after so that, we can make sure everyone has had time to jump on. But let us know where you're calling in from. I see San Francisco in the house. We got Texas in the house with Han. Buenos Aires. Hi, Flor. Love seeing some of our repeated attendees. Washington, D.C. It always makes me happy. It's like we're becoming friends, through this, although we don't really know each other. Ontario, Canada, Cambridge, perfect. I love it. I love it. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen. And if this is your first time or your 50th time joining us, I just want to welcome you. Austin, Boca Raton, Florida, perfect. And is anyone thinking about, post-COVID? Are they thinking about places they want to go or not quite yet? Good to see you again, Donna. Los Angeles, California. So I'm going to give it just about another minute or so and we'll let people join. But I hope everyone's day is going well. So it's such a weird time, as we're all saying, but I feel like there's just so much happening everywhere. So sometimes it's just nice to, at least for me, to come to these chats and listen to people speak and just connect with people on topics outside of what's happening in the news and all the craziness globally. All right. And so I'm just going to hit record and then we will get right into this.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Perfect. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited for another chat and learn where we are joined with Han from DigitalOcean, and I will get into introductions shortly. But I just want to welcome everyone today. Thank you for joining us from wherever you're calling from. We are more than happy to have you here to dive into today's topic. And so, with that, we love participation. That makes things just so much more fun. So, turn on your cameras, come off of mute, and, any questions, comments, anything, please feel free to write in the chat. And I want you to know that, this is a safe space. So if at any point you don't feel comfortable writing your question or comment to the whole group, you can always write to me anonymously by clicking on the chat box and then just hitting the drop-down menu and clicking my name, so Nicole Felter. And this is being recorded, so we will send a follow-up email afterwards with the recordings. You can rewatch it, share it, whatever you want to do with it. So with that, no need to take any feverish notes. We really want you to be engaged and participate in the conversation. And this is about you. So I want to make sure that we're getting to these questions that you have about this topic, because there's so many engineers who are facing these same dilemmas. And so with that, I want to hand the mic over to Hon Norton, who is currently the principal architect at DigitalOcean, and I will let her talk about herself properly. So thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome. As it's stated on the slide, I started my career out at General Electric. I was a circuit board designer for General Electric. I also got on their technical leadership program, which is a 2-year sort of like an internal executive program where you fly to headquarters to take classes on Friday and Saturday. And then once a year, you get together as a group of 200, your class is about 200 people in Crotonville, New York, one week every year, and you do the conference, and you get to hear all the speeches from the various VPs and the CEOs. So yeah, after working for GE for 5 years, I took sabbatical to get my master's degree in computer engineering. And then I joined Compaq, and I became an IC, a chip processor designer. And I stayed there for 18 years. And then I joined Dell because they made me a really nice offer. And then I joined DigitalOcean because they needed somebody to architect the data center. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wow, what an interesting path, and also what that's so interesting about your former experience and having taken the sabbatical and all of that. I think that's so cool when people take a sabbatical, and I think at some point in our careers it becomes necessary almost to take that time off and maybe refocus. So thank you for sharing that with us. And so, as we said, Han works for DigitalOcean, and so I will drop the link to follow their company page in the chat. And you can follow their company page to learn about updates, whether it be about upcoming events or jobs. So I will drop that in the chat. And so these are some of the questions that we have pre-submitted. And then, so if we don't seem to be getting to your question, if you have a follow-up question, please feel free to chime in, come off of mute. If you want to come off of mute but aren't really sure how to, you can always raise your hand by hitting the raise your hand button in the participant section. So without further ado, can you provide a better definition of the different paths, Han?
Right, so I took your slide and I drew in a Y. I'm sorry, I should have given you a heads up on that. But your career path is basically like a Y. So at some point it will split. Early on in your career, whether it be technical or non-technical, you're going to be an individual contributor doing the job that you are hired in to do. So you do that for X number of years. And after that, in the case of technical, for example, in my case, I was a chip designer. I designed processors. So after doing processor design for 5 years, 6 years, you say, okay, I know I can do this. I know how to do this. You become kind of not complacent, but comfortable. So then the next thing is what would be interesting to me. Do I see myself designing processor for the next 40 years? And at that point, for me, it was, well, the same company, I was at Compaq then. Do I want to, Compaq also offer graphic design graphic chips, and then memory chips, like basically all kind of chips. So I move on to do different chips. So that's where you kind of grow, and on technical term, it's breadth. So you do the same level of expertise, but multiple fields. So that, and the opportunity came for me well, my manager asked if I wanted to be a manager because I've been floating around and I do know how to design processor relatively well at this point. But at that point I said, well, I'd rather go and learn how to do graphic chips instead of being a manager. Because at that time, it's 2000, there was a lot of turnover. So new people are constantly coming in, interviewing new people, bringing them up to speed, teach them how processor design goes. There was a high demand for that as well. It's just, for me at that point, it's just I prefer to go and do graphic chips. I prefer to go and do cell bridge or management control or memory controller chips. So that kind of set me down the technical path. And also when I was with GE, I was a circuit board designer. And after 5 years of doing that, I was taking neutral classes. It was split between MBA versus a master in engineering. I was doing that. And then when I took sabbatical, I pretty much decided that I'm going to do a master instead of an MBA. So from that is what that's when I decided that I want to go and get a master's degree in computer architecture in processor design instead of an MBA, because after 5 years you have enough credentials to pursue an MBA or a master at that point. And at that point, I pretty much prefer the technical path. So I went and got my master's degree. And then when I was presented after I became a chip designer, 5 years after that, I was presented to be an opportunity to be a manager. I was still more interested in doing other chips instead of bringing people in and bring them up to speed. It was pretty much an interest at that point for me. So the nice thing with Compact is that wherever your interest is, they do, as a company that pride itself on innovation, they do try to develop two paths that are exactly equivalent. So after 5 or so years, you have the opportunity to be a manager, or you can be a senior engineer. And at this level, the skill set are the same, because the person who chose to be a manager will have been designing processor for 5 years as well. So at this point, you have the same knowledge level, and they do both relatively the same. And then they try to do that as you move up after 5 years in those roles. From all the chips, so now you become a system designer. So as you move up the rung, and after the manager is director, so every rung is supposed to be the same in terms of compensation, stock options. And the theory behind that is that they want the best technical mind to innovate. And we do know a company do thrive on innovation, such as Apple. So they come out with new things that drive revenues up. So they do want innovative mind to stay on innovative mind without the penalty of compensation, if you will. And on the management track, they do want people who are very capable at pulling people together, guiding team, driving resources toward the company's goal, and drive revenue and profits and all that. So they do, in the tier 1 companies I was involved in, the two paths are exactly equivalent at every rung, and in terms of compensation and stock options. But the technical path drive the company, guide the company in technical direction. What technology do we invest in? For example, Steve Jobs and Apple would be the perfect example. Steve Jobs would be, if he wasn't a founder, he would have been like a fellow, like the chief architect of Apple. Steve Jobs as a CEO is kind of different, only because he founded the company. But in most other companies, he would have been like a fellow, but that would be like a CEO equivalent.
And so, talking about this, is this something that somebody who's not quite sure and is maybe, looking to switch into a new company, is this something that they should look for to make sure that their company or the company that they're targeting is providing the same amount of compensation and the same amount of experience, so that they can try and figure out what's best for them?
That's a great question, to be completely honest. The tier 1 company that I came from, that was the case. The second company, that wasn't the case. The people on technical path, the base salary is the same, but the stock option is higher on the management side. So you would see like a VP with stock options is worth in the billions, but you don't see the equivalent of VP, which is a fellow, have $1 million stock options. So some company, they're not all the same, but like I said, at Compact, the company always said they want to make it equivalent, and their technical people at the peak of it all had $1 million worth of stock options. I don't see that in the other company following that, my first company, for them to be the same. The base salary will be the same, except one has more stock options and one may not have any stock options.
Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that information. And we had a question that came in the chat. So Don asked, I have the skills and experience for project management and dealing with people, but they don't have much of a tech background. They're applying to jobs, but not getting interviews. What can they do to get a shot at jobs in the tech field like this? And so I believe we have a question, further on, but I'm happy to get to this now, about maybe certifications. If somebody wants to be in management, but also wants to work in tech. Do you have any certifications you recommend or courses that you think somebody should take?
So right now is a really tricky time. That is true. We do have, DigitalOcean does have openings for managers. If you go to our website, you do see that. And what I also do see here internally is the hiring manager said she would get hundreds and hundreds really qualified resume for the same job. And that's pretty much unprecedented in her 3-year tenure at DigitalOcean. So the competition out there is pretty fierce. So it would used to be that as long as with people manager, I guess again, it depends on what group is being hired into. Our company does require some fundamental understanding of the work that you are managing. But in terms of certification, again, it really depends. For our, say, our kernel development team, you probably would have to come from a device driver background. I mean, that you were a software engineer for a while and now want to lead people, or have been a software engineer at some point. But in terms of, we do have program manager as well, who don't need to be technical. And those are the ones who have PM, program management certifications. A few of them do have those. So yeah, but you can apply for the program management job without being technical. That's what I'm saying.
Perfect. And we just had a chat about program management and what that means earlier today. So that fits in perfectly. And that person was on that chat as well. So awesome to hear that. And so when did you know you wanted to choose the technology path over management? You talked a little bit about that decision, but I would love to hear some of, your thought process in that. And what can someone just starting out in their career do to help them make the decision?
Yeah, for me, it was at about the 5-year mark after getting rather comfortable and confident in what I was asked to do as an IC. That's when, what's next comes to mind. And that was, do I want an MBA or do I want a master? And that's when I decided to go and get a master. And also along the way, you make mental notes as to what, the senior technical people do and what manager do. And you make a mental note or even written down note as, do I like doing that? Do I like doing that? And on the I remember when I was at GE, the manager was, there was a lot of interviewing because that was around 2000. So the Y2K, there was turnover. So she was interviewing a lot and she was constantly training new people and bring people up to speed and set the course for their success so that they get to the point where the team back to the delivery capability that it was before the turnover, that kind of thing. And she was very good at it. People loved her. There was this innate loyalty. Her name was Deanna. Like, people love her. I mean, she was very nurturing. She was very thoughtful, very methodic. So she was really good at that. And I also watched the one, the processor design on. I was a board designer, but there was a processor designer that I take the processor and put it on my board, and I watched what he had, the content of his work, and I was more drawn toward what I wanted to be him when I grow up, if you will. So that's where the master degree came from. It's observe and make mental note as to what people do that you like, what you don't like.
I feel like listening to you talk about that, it's almost like when you have a favorite teacher and it makes you say, okay, you know what? I want to be a teacher because this person really positively impacted my life. And I guess you can have the same negative experience, right? Where you can say, wow, that was such a not great leader that made me want to pursue that direction to try to decide or try to influence people in a different capacity and maybe have a different impact on people. And for somebody who might just be starting out, is there any advice you can give to them about deciding that path? Or would you kind of just say, you know what, try both and see, I mean, not try both because you have to get up into management, but maybe trying to shadow 2 different people or mentorship maybe?
Actually, that was a good point. I took a note on my side window here, is to seek out mentors in both areas. Then you will see, get more behind the scenes as to the content of their work and what they like and what they don't like as well. Because in the end, we want to feel excited about what we do. If constantly bringing in new people, interviewing people is something that you don't enjoy, then that's definitely the end of that road, right?
Definitely. Thank you. Perfect. And so you did talk about this a bit, so I'm happy to have you dive in here a little bit more, but how have your past career experiences shaped your current work ethic and goals?
So this one is a really interesting one. It was on the GE Technical Leadership Program. That was, a summer when they bring in all, the TLP candidates, bring them into the headquarters for a week of, speeches from various VPs. And I remember the CEO at that time for GE was Jack Welch. And this is in the 90s. So you get a job and you stay with that job for life. If you retire from the place that you got the job for, and then your son worked there, your daughter worked there, your grandkids start to work there. So it was that culture. So Jackwell was one of the first people who started the whole layoff and things. So in his speech, and he said that, when you are done with the CLP program, the company will have invested the equivalent of an executive MBA program in each of you. That translates to about, at that time, the 90 was $50,000 a year in 2 years. So we have put in 100,000, actually probably more than that, because they had to fly us to headquarters, wherever we at located. So we would have invested a lot of money in you. Needless to say, I don't ever want to lay any of you off, but it is a business. There'll be down cycles, in which case I may have to lay some of you off. What I want you to do between now and then is dig in as hard as you can, drive as much output as you can to benefit both you and the company. And the reason why I said that is the more you do, the more you learn. And he threw out a statistic like a person retains 70% of what they do, 10% of what they read, 30% of what they see. So the more you do, the more you retain. And if I had to lay you off, your next job is probably arriving before you even leave this job. So your next job will have lined up and people will love to have you. So be more than your best for yourself and for the company. So that stayed with me.
I love that thought process, and thinking about, especially now as people tend to change careers every 3 to 5 years or even less, depending on the field that they're in, right? But thinking about that, because there is so much that you can take from hopefully every opportunity, whether it be learning the softer skills or learning those hard hands-on skills in your field, right? That's an awesome way to think about it. So thank you for sharing that. I know that'll stick with me. And so what are the challenges for someone with a technical background to get transition into leadership roles? What's the best way to prepare? Well, you talked about this a little bit, but do you think there's any courses or any specific things that can prepare you more for the leadership aspect?
So like I said, there's a period of time early in your career where everybody is an individual contributor. Remember the Y shape in the first slide? The company that I came from, that a different company will be different in that the way they shape is a pyramid kind of shape. So a manager is somebody who manages, say, 10 people. So in a group of any 10 people, there'll be one manager. And the equivalent of that is on the technical side. In a group of 10 people, there will be a technical ladder, the first rung, which they call Master of Technologists or Senior Engineer, whatever the terminology may be. So there's also that level of hierarchy as well. So the opportunity will come in, after so many years, you will be asked whether you would be interested in a management role, or you will ask if you can be promoted to a technical ladder. And either could be one way or the other. And people have left companies because they don't get promoted onto the technical ladder, or management, if they go somewhere else to find management role. But those roles get posted, or you get promoted into, or you look at posting and you apply internally or externally. So the opportunity will be presented to you or will be available for you to apply. And what role? There are a ton of leadership styles and leadership books. Again, for me, the observation was pretty important because there are different leadership styles and the size of the company matter as well. In a big company, you actually, my second to last employer, you see different management style. More, when you have a company of 300,000 employees, the autocratic everybody need to do this because I need you to do this. The autocratic to do as the CEO want you to do. That's more ubiquitous because you can't have consensus driven from 300,000 people. You will never get anywhere. You never get consensus. So the big company is autocratic, is do what I need you to do. It's not a debate. I'm not seeking for your opinions. And actually, a CEO actually said that. It's not, I'm not polling for opinion here. I'm just telling you what we're going to do. That's what. And then there are like startup where it's more hands off. What is the style? I think laissez-faire, I think it's referred to, when you kind of it's a startup of like 10, 15, 20, 50 people. You let people do what they do best, and the company is driven from that. You create a product from what your people innovate. So with small company, it's more hands off and be the supportive, provide your people the tools and the resources, and let them be what that they can be, and then your company is what they can derive. What's the best way to prepare for that? Like I said, different, depends on what company you want to get into, startup or mid-size or a big company. There are different books on those as well.
And as you're talking about moving into these leadership opportunities, what if you feel like you've been proving yourself and, you've even maybe applied internally a few times and you've just gotten passed over? I know this is kind of a narrative that we hear from a lot of women in technology, especially when they're working in companies that have more men. They feel like they're just as equipped as the other people on their team, whether they be men or not, but they're not feeling like they're valued. How do you recommend somebody go about getting into leadership that way? Or how do you recommend somebody get into leadership?
I would say seek out the opportunity elsewhere. Like I said, in the tier ones companies I came from, like it's a pyramid kind of architecture. So every 10 there would be one manager, every 10 there would be the first rung of the technical, and then every 40 that would be the next level, then the next level on the ladder. So it equally competitive on both sides. So basically, for you to move on to the rung, you would have to be in the 10%. And of course there are biases and things like that. I would say if you keep passing over, which if all 10 people from your team have aspirations to be manager, you probably would get passed over 9 times before you make it. So the probability is, like it is a pyramid kind of architecture, so the likelihood of getting passed over is pretty high, and I would say seek out the opportunity elsewhere.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And I just want to call out, if anyone has a question or anything, please feel free to drop it in the chat, come off of mute. This is about you, so I want to make sure that we're getting your questions answered. And so is it okay to switch between management and tech roles, say every few years, or is it better to choose one and stay focused?
So it depends on how far into the path you are. So at the first rung, as a manager or senior engineer, they both, like I said, they're interchangeable. I have seen teams that one acting as the other when needs arise. But as you get higher, for the equivalent of a VP is a fellow, and a VP, if a VP cannot become a fellow because the technical knowledge isn't there to drive a company in that technical direction. There'll be so much missing details that I don't see that ever happening. Let me see. Okay, the switch between. If you're constantly switching back and forth, I'm trying to think. If it's a small company, a small startup, I can see that being conceivable. But larger than that, I don't see it, in a sense that if you are in a manager for 5 years and someone else on the technical path, they have 5 years on, let's just say, pick my field, which is processor design. I know that after 5 years, your computer that you bought 5 years ago is not anywhere near the computer you can buy today. So you know that the person who stayed with technical for 5 years, they have gained that faster, better knowledge that you as a manager, people manager, have stayed away. Therefore, you will miss that. So you jump over to the technical side, you get caught up. Say, okay, so now great, I can do a really 2020 computer. And then you stay for 5 years, you get to 2025. So I can, I'm as good as a 2025 computer. And you jump over back to management. So now somebody go to, now supercomputer in 2030. So now you constantly play and catch up. So you basically stay at the same level, but you just go back and forth. You don't progress.
And Is there any way to maybe dabble in both? I don't know if, if you've ever volunteered and trying to like keep up on your on your technical skills and on your coding skills. If somebody was interested in, maybe trying out the management path, but making sure they're not losing sight of their technical career to fall back on in case they don't like the management path. What advice would you have for somebody who's looking to maybe follow that kind of career path?
So I've seen in small startup company where you can be on the management track and still do code slinging when you need to. My husband is a CSO, and he still write codes now and then, not often, but when crisis happen, he has to go in and sling some code, he still can. But then this is a 70 people startup company. So if you a small startup where the focus is, your company is McAfee, let's just say you do cybersecurity or whatever, you focus into this one particular threat, then you can go back and forth between those. But when you zoom out to like a tier one company like say HP or Dell, where they have so many products that it's just not conceivable for you to be a technical person to understand all these products, technical behind all these products like an HP or Dell offer, and still be an effective like VP or director.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. And okay, kind of piggybacking on that question that I just asked, how easy is it to switch back to technical if you realize that managerial track might not be for you? So I guess also in this question, are there any courses that you might recommend or anything that you've done to maybe brush up on that if you kind of went into managerial and said, oh, this isn't for me?
So I think if you are like a first run where you a manager for like a 4 or 5 years and you realize that it's not for me, and you switch back, I think it's not a difficult lift to start down that track. So I would say just know early on, do a lot of self assessment while you're taking that first run on either path, and really be honest with yourself. And if you really don't like it, switch back, because like I said, once you go deeper, it's almost like you can't go back in without having to go all the way back. You can't switch over and be equivalent. You can go back, but you would have to drop down the runs. Like if you're a VP and you want to go back to being a technical contributor at like a tier one company, you have to go back to like a senior engineer level, which nobody has ever done. Well, once somebody pick a VP and they realize I really don't like this post, at tier one, they launch with it, they continue with it. I don't see them going back ever.
But yeah, because that also is like a cutback on their title and probably on pay more than
Oh,
anything.
absolutely. Yeah, the pay cut. I don't think once you get used to that level of spending, you can't. Because I remember one VP at the company, he was talking to all of us, and he was talking about what is that, customer service, the NPS. Oh, NPS, the rating that you give, and said, do any of you have Mercedes? You all have Mercedes, right? And we all said, no, we don't have Mercedes. We're not VP. We don't have Mercedes. You can't relate to your story. I said, okay, what he's saying, the Mercedes actually have NPS that way. When you take your car to service and then you take it out, they actually give you, a survey, and you either give them like a 5 or a 0, because you give them anything between, it get pulled into a 5 or a 0 anyway. But he said, it's the experience that you get when you take your Mercedes into the shop. I said, well, nobody does that. So needless to say, even if he doesn't like VP position, he's not going back to being a senior engineer.
I don't blame him. And also, here talking about this, I think if you're in a managerial track and you thought you liked it, it might also be the environment that isn't, fostering the type of place that you want to be. I think that's important to recognize as well. It may be the fit for you, but it might not be the company fit for you and the culture fit for you, which is always important. Because I think, as much as loving your job is important, it's so important to love the people you work with. Maybe not love, but like the people you work with, more than tolerate them, let's say, and enjoy that, because I feel like that makes up so much of it.
Right.
And so we have somebody writing it in the chat, and they said, thank you, Han. This is really insightful. I have a strong technical background, and I'm finding that companies only recognize this aspect. I applied to several companies to manager positions and rarely got an interview. On the interview I had, an interviewing person told me that I'm too technical for manager roles and that he sees me in engineering roles. This leaves me with the choice of only moving horizontally through similar technical roles. However, after 15 years of technical roles, I feel like I'm just running in a circle.
Have they tried applying to DigitalOcean? We're hurting for managers. I'm surprised. I am surprised because I know at DigitalOcean, the same goes with the tier one company that I'm at. Well, it depends. What by you mean manager is like the first, like we call them line manager. Basically, you have 10 people because then after the rung above that is senior manager, which means you have maybe multiple of teams of 10 that you watch. So the senior manager will have a few, line manager under them. So their scope of influence is like 40 to 60 people, that kind of thing. So if they come in, if the first time you want to become a manager, I think you can apply for a position that manages about, between 5 to 10 people, with 10 being the max. So those, I don't see why she wouldn't get the position. They actually, those positions does require relevant technical knowledge. It may not be applicable, I'm wondering, but yeah.
And also, Stanley, just listening to this, maybe it's thinking, reconsidering the way your resume is worded. Maybe it's not, highlighting some of those leadership roles in a way that you think you can, because I think in our day-to-day lives we do a lot of things that we don't think about as pertinent to leadership, but I think they do. Maybe if you have children at home, whether that's communication and negotiation and patience, or taking care of elderly family members, or something you do in your spare time. I think there's maybe a different way to approach your resume. But I'm going to drop the DigitalOcean company page in the chat, and you can go there and apply to openings that DigitalOcean has. So thanks for the question. Perfect. So, and thank you so much, Han. This is a really great chat, and really, really insightful. So thank you so much for being here. So doesn't this come down to a time commitment? Many likely have the skills to do either path, so technical or managerial, but do you have the time?
I would disagree with that. The first rung, yes, you do have time, and they've been in time of, you lost a senior engineer or you lost a manager where the senior engineer is also the acting manager. That is feasible. That is doable, definitely doable. But I don't see, again, like it depends on the size of the company. If the company is a before Series A startup where the company is 5 people or 10 people, you can be the CEO and sling the heck out of that code that you need. So it's all the size. So if you are a management person and under you is 60 people, I don't see you doing both. So it depends on the size of the team. If you want to switch back and forth and you have time, again, I think if it's a small 10, 20 people team, you might be able to have the time to fill both. And the competency, the technical depth and breadth. But when it got to 60 people, where you assume 60 people, you want them to delve into different areas, and there is no way a person who has the equity equivalent of 60 other people and still manage them. I think that would be a hard concept.
Definitely. And do you think that one of these paths is less time consuming than the other?
I think that was the next questions in terms of, yes, I do think actually, personally, for my career, yes, I would say if I had chosen the management path, I would have had more balance. Because there was a point in my life that wasn't so balanced because I was in the direct line of execution. My code is needed to ship this product. And I had 8-year-olds and had 10-year-olds, and they feed them, tuck them in, and then sling the code from the time they go to bed. My kids go to bed at 7:30 because after that, I need to resume to. So I would sling code from 8 to like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing. So there was hectic time for sure. If I had taken the management position that was offered to me, then I can urge someone else to be in the line of the execution. I would be off of it. I'd be in a supporting role, and I would be, supporting a person whose code is needed, but not myself personally. So there's been time that I have to deliver. It doesn't matter what happens.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And so actually, there's the answer, and you're right. That was the next question. So yeah, thank you for that answer. I'm going to skip this question now. Perfect. And so, and I know we talked about this a bit, so I don't know if we really need to dive into it. I think what we kind of took from this question, which is how can I find a leadership role that still allows for hands-on coding? It sounds like from what you said that that's more in a startup industry where you're going to find that kind of ability to have that hands-on coding and then still lead people at the same time.
Right. The smaller the company, the more you will need to do that, because everybody needs to contribute to the one product that they are going to market for.
So PowerToFly is a startup company, and it is so interesting getting to play different roles, which I think is super cool. Just being able to, like, I don't know, one day be in marketing and then another day be in, I don't know, hosting, and how it's all tied together, but it's a little bit different. And it's really cool getting to work in a startup environment. So I love startups, and the fact that you can kind of try on different hats and find the thing that really works for you.
That's pretty much it. That's why a lot of people do startups, because the breadth of things that they get to try out. I mean, the flip side of that is if you don't get Series A funding, or if people don't want to invest, then you're out of a job rather quickly. So in our household, I was always the tier one, the stable income person. My husband's been floating the whole startups ever since, college. So one of us is, kind of, you got to stay stable. We got to have health insurance. We got to have a stable paycheck, however little it is, kind of thing.
I think also the thing that I feel like I notice is that the seniority in a startup it doesn't hold as much weight as a larger company, because there's a lot more rungs to climb on the ladder of seniority in a larger organization than a smaller organization. I mean, obviously, right? So that's just interesting. And Donna said, yes, startups give excuse me. Yes, startups give a lot of opportunities to work in many roles. So yes, and then somebody said, I'm seeking for an opportunity to impact my skill set. So Amaka, I will drop DigitalOcean's company page in the chat, and you can see if there's any opportunities that might fit your skill set and might give you an opportunity to enhance the ones you're looking to improve. And so, Han, where and how can you start transitioning from technical to management roles? Was there a pivotal moment? I know you said you went for your master's instead of your MBA, but with other people you've worked with, have you seen a pivotal point in their career where they were like, this is where I can either go technical or go the managerial path?
So from my personal experience, I'm wondering how many people chose the management path if they didn't know the technical side is exactly equivalent. Because the back in the 90s, even early 2000s, even now with some companies, if you want to be promoted where you get more stock options or higher pay, all of those come in management roles. The more senior you are in a technical path, it just means that maybe you have more security, you can do more. So it translates to job security, and maybe a scotch higher pay, but not as lucrative as the management path. So I think that's why a lot of people chose the management path, because they didn't know the technical path can be equivalent. And again, some companies that is not equivalent. So the management path in a lot of cases is more lucrative. So if you want to stick with technical path and you don't want to make the financial sacrifice for it, then you need to confirm that on your interview. Talk to the HR and make sure that they are equivalent. Because my personal experience, like not all the companies I've been at where technical path is equivalent in base pay, but not in other compensation. We have a VP, so a fellow, my level of a fellow, and then a VP are the same, but VP have access to private jets. I've never seen a private jet from the company. So So there are perks like that,
Yes, definitely. Oh man, a private jet. That sounds really nice. The private jet and the Mercedes. That sounds a lot
Right,
like my
exactly,
language.
completely, right? Mercedes drive you in a private jet.
Oh, though, I have to say, uh, I think about this a lot, and this is kind of on topic, talking about the money and compensation and everything. And sometimes, you see all these people that have all these things, and sometimes they just have more problems in their life too, right? Talking about money. And I feel like sometimes when we talk about climbing the financial or the career ladder, we talk about getting more money, but sometimes it's just more problems because, as you were saying, somebody who stepped into a VP role and now makes a certain amount of money and reaches a certain threshold, it's really hard to go back. And, that causes more problems with like maybe jobs or I'm thinking more existentially now, but it's just always interesting to look at that when talking about these things because sometimes I think we get mixed up in the meaning of it all and that money isn't everything. And I think that's something that the pandemic has shown us, especially that money isn't everything. And health is something that is so important. To keep
Right. So I
going.
mean, another example from he's actually turned out to be one of my favorite VPs. The Mercedes Experience VP, that VP. The reason why he picked the management path for him was because he said he was always really good with people, and he was really good at golf. Digging into like root causing problems, not so much his thing. He said, "Han, I'm not just staying on a computer on a Friday night trying to figure out why this thing doesn't work. I'm really good at golf and I'm really good at talking." So he pursued a career that played to his strength. He was, most VP and those play golf. So and they spent oodles of hours on golf course making deals and things. And he was a talker and he was a really good golfer and not much of a debugger. So I said, you know what? Drop things that I'm not so good at and pursue what I'm really good at. Playing golf when somebody's paid me to play golf. Are you kidding me? Of course I do that. So that was his choice for being a management. He started out as an engineer, just like both of like me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And so Tatiana, thanks for your question. Tatiana asked, Han, can you please talk about more of your daily responsibilities and challenges as a principal architect of DigitalOcean? What tech and soft skills do you think are important for your position?
So on the daily basis, we are a startup, so we use Slack. On the daily basis, I would keep my eye on all the Slack channels to see what crisis ensued, and what come out of that is that I see the weak links in our architecture, what breaks a lot, what the pattern of breaks, and so the next generation architecture, I would need to figure out a way to fix that. So that's one of them. And the soft skills, I do see this a lot. The first time our new CEO came in and he sat down with me, he said, what would you like to change in a company? And I said, I would like for people to stop making assertion without data. Because when people say, oh, that break, we need to change that because it breaks all the time. And when you actually peel back the onion and look for data for it, it breaks like 5 times out of 100, and all 5 times that person will pull in to fix it, and therefore they're burned by that scar. So in the end, you look at the grand scheme of things, if your SOL service agreement say that you need to be functional 90% of the time, and you fail 5 times out of 100, you're still ahead. So yeah, be data driven. So if you're going to present, my new architecture shall be XYZ, and here's the data as to why we go in that direction to fix this problem. This is percentage it fail. Have data for your decisions instead of it's so and so. I heard from so and so. So those are the things that we trip a lot into. We trip into making decisions based on I heard it from so and so, or oh, my favorite vendor suggests that we should do this. So when somebody try to sell you something, of course they're going to tell you, have slide deck of why you need it, even though they don't really have the detail on why you should need it. So yeah, study the data, be data driven with your decision, and have that in your back pocket. So when you present to leadership team, you have the rationale for why you propose or want the company to go into that direction.
Perfect. Thank you. And so if anyone else has any other questions, we have about 12 minutes left. So I want to open the floor up to everyone to ask your questions about DigitalOcean or about Han's experience. She's done such a great job of filling us in. And so how do I find out what technical route I want to go down? I'm interested in all things logic and tend to want to know a bit of everything.
Okay, so that is good that whoever asked the question is want to be into everything. And I think if you spend X number of years being into everything, you will have a preference. And then that will surface as something that you need to pursue. And I also, companies, DigitalOcean being one of them, company usually give employee the option to attend a conference every X number of years. Every year, I go to a few conferences a year, but everybody at DigitalOcean get to go to a conference, I think every other year. Go to the conference, that's where you get to see other people in the world, what they're working on. It's a lot, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose, but they, again, just like this, what we have here, they all recorded. If you ever want to go back and look at some of the things you're interested in, it's all there. And at these conferences, they have birds of a feather, which means people pick topics that they want to talk about, and it's usually held between 4 and 6, which is happy hours. They usually bring in drinks and things, and they talk about specific topics. Watch the bird of a feather title and attend one of those. Then you will, whether you find out whether you're interested in it or not. But it's, every day there's a bird of a feather. So I would say conferences, and then participate in, out of these conferences, they usually call for membership or contribution, contribute to those, the ones that you believe in. And then it really does go from there. It balloons from there.
Oh, thanks. And what have been your favorite conferences that you've been to? I mean, last year more so than this year, right? Well, maybe this year as well.
This year, actually, I usually go to OCP, which is, oh my gosh, it's hosted by Facebook. OCP, Open Compute Project. It's a Facebook project, and they usually have all these vendors with the neat form factors, and everybody go there to show off what they've been working on. And odd, it means there's so many odd words there, but interesting. So I make an effort to go to that conference every year.
Wow, it's so weird seeing everything switch to virtual and trying to recreate that sort of ambiance that comes with the conference, right? Of like meeting people and doing all of that. We just had our virtual conference, the first one that we ever did, a diversity reboot, and it was so inspiring and so cool to also, being down in Buenos Aires, have access to those conferences, because a lot of times if you're international, it's like an additional cost to go to the conference, as a lot of them end up being based in the US. So that's cool too, from an aspect that everything's moving virtually and that you can still access all of this. Do you have any other ones for the rest of the year that you're looking forward to?
I have another networking conference that I'm going to for all the networking gears. But that one is, of course, everything's going to be virtual. That one is in August. I have to look at my calendar to see. But that one, yeah.
Cool.
And for what we do, they have Kubernetes coming up. So we do Kubernetes is one of our products. So I do go to that conference too.
Oh, that's awesome. Tatiana said that they've attended the online AWS and MongoDB conferences this year. Both were very good. Okay, that's awesome.
There you go.
That's awesome. Cool.
Okay, question.
Yeah,
if that's all right. Okay, so think probably this happens to a lot of women in tech, but I think because I do have soft skills and I tend to be a friendly, sociable person, and I'm good with people, I often get comments like I've got from previous managers and career coaches like, oh, you should do an MBA, like you'd be a great manager, blah, blah, blah. And it's great to hear that, but at the same time, I know that like I love the tech side and I've always leaned towards that, and I think I will still probably get a master's in something technical, but I'm just wondering, like, are those skills kind of wasted if you don't do an MBA, or is there a way that you can still be an engineering manager who still like works on the very technical side, but maybe you manage a small group of engineers or something like that. Like, could you see the opportunity to still use those skills in a situation like that? Or is it something that you think if you have it, you should use it and just be a manager, a full management?
Right. Like I said, it depends on the size. If you see yourself being content with managing the 10, 20 people, I think you can do both. And having soft skill is very important because I've seen enough of the presentation that people, a lot of us engineers, when we present something, we assume that people should know what we're talking about. So we come out with this, we start talking, and then we lost our audience from the get-go, and nobody followed. At the end of the presentation, nobody knows, so it becomes wasted. So yeah, the soft skill is super important. Just make sure everybody in your audience understand what you're talking about, and they agree with you because they understand it, not because you lost them from the get-go. So soft skill is very important. But what I do know from tier one company is that you, without an MBA, they would let you go up to, I'm thinking director, but once you get the VP, they tend to want, actually all of them that I've seen have an MBA, because at that point you basically run a division, and
Right.
you have the cash flow, the revenue, the headcount, all of that. You become a budget. You run like a small company. So they do want MBA for tier one, but without an MBA, you can, I think even with tier one, you can get up to maybe director level without an MBA.
Yeah. So you could, you don't necessarily have to be an individual contributor forever. Like, you could still manage people. It just wouldn't be as many people as a VP or higher would, right?
Right. That's what, from what I've seen, that would be a correct statement.
Okay, awesome. That's super helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Marissa, for coming off with mute. I love it. I love it. And so Donna asked a quick question, and then as soon as we're done with that, I would love to get into a little bit about DigitalOcean and the open positions. And so Donna asked, would an MBA be required if you have production experience dealing with and heading projects with budgets, different elements, et cetera, and making it happen?
Is the question whether an MBA is still important? Like I said, depends on the size of the company. I think at startup, like right now at DigitalOcean, I don't think all of VPs have MBAs. I don't think so. But I know at the tier one company where I came from, all the VPs have MBA. Even if they start a position without an MBA, I think they're asked to go get an MBA. Otherwise, they're asked to get an MBA as a stipulation to be promoted. So you may not have it now, but I want to see it in 2 or 3 years.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And Donna said, thank you. So DigitalOcean is hiring, as you've mentioned, and you mentioned a bit about this, but what positions are you looking for currently?
I don't know. I'm less an architect, so I'm sure there are HR people, DigitalOcean HR people on here. I have no idea. I do know there is, I know that we hired. I just don't know what we're all.
Not a problem. I love the authenticity, and I dropped the company page in the chat, the PowerToFly company page. So if anyone's looking for a job, you can definitely reference that and see what open positions they have. And what's your favorite part about working at DigitalOcean?
It's small, and it is a really good company. Quality out of tier one is huge. I mean, really stable income after you had 20 years in one of these tier one. It pretty much, they have to lay off like a few thousand people before they get to you, right? So it's a safe place, but it's small, it's agile, and they treat the employees really well. And the impact that you can make is pretty huge. And I think the theme at DigitalOcean is we do everything with love, and it's true. You feel the authenticity of people who want to help you, who want to be successful with you. It's the person-to-person interaction is very personal and very personal. Something that I didn't get when I was with 300,000 employee company. It's just that I need this from you. When can you get it? It's just like a handshake to get something done. But it's very personable. It's a small company, and benefits are good. It's remote. 100% remote for me. So that's new for me too. I was at a tier one. You have to be in a location, and I think what made the decision for me is I got a call from a recruiter who said a VP wanted to talk to me based on my resume and all that. And that was 2 days prior, my high schooler missed the bus and I was already at work and my work was an hour away from home. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't get to you and you still not, not miss school. So the whole remote with kids in school is super, super friendly. And back to when I said I was with a company, a brick and mortar company where I have to be in the office and get some things done at a certain time. If it had been DigitalOcean, it would have been a different story because it's more flexible. That at the old company, I would have to finish my code from 8 o'clock in the afternoon until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I still have to show up to work at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day to fund all the meetings. With DigitalOcean, if I have to stay up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to finish my code, I don't have to turn on my Slack and I sleep until I get my fill. It's the flexibility that is very family friendly.
Yes, and Donna was writing that she has a little one, and these are good things to think about. And yes, so true, Donna. I have a 1.5-year-old at home, and I work. My company is 100% remote at PowerToFly, and so it's really nice to have that flexibility and to know, like, if you wanted to go travel, I mean, if that was something you could do, you could do that easily while you're working remotely and not worry about, losing your job or saying, oh, I need to take a certain amount of time off. You can still work as long as you have an internet connection. Perfect. And so, Han, last question. Do you have any tips for somebody who's applying for a job at DigitalOcean?
Be authentic.
Just like you were today, right, Han?
Well, there's like 600 other people like me. They're better. They're better. So they're better than me, but at least, be as authentic as me.
Awesome. That's great advice. That's great advice. I think sometimes we forget to bring our authentic selves for various reasons, especially in this tough climate, but it is always good to be authentic and be yourself. So thank you so much for this conversation. Tatiana said you are very authentic. So that was echoed throughout the chat. So thank you so much, Han, for such a great chat. You're getting some applause and praise. So I want to say thank you to you for coming today. And I want to, shout out to everyone that I'm dropping our LinkedIn's in the chat, DigitalOcean's company page again in the chat. And at PowerToFly, we have daily events. We have sometimes 2, sometimes 3 events per day of these virtual chats. So please join us for another one. I love getting to be a part of them and doing them. So thank you, everyone. And Han, I will let you have the parting words.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. That was lovely.
Awesome. And so I hope everyone has a good day and a safe start to their week. Thank you. Bye.